Hey there, everybody, and welcome to our next CIA Agents Live. I'm Julia Simas, Agent 12. So as you know, some of you have been here before to watch our Agent Live program, making the most of doing Facebook Live videos, of course. And that's pretty exciting because we can bring you a lot of the special people that I have connected to us as the CIA around the world. And today I've got very special Agent 777, or do you prefer to be called 777? Nadia Moreau in New York. Hi, Nadia. Thanks for joining me.
Yes. Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody.
So Nadia today, if you've seen the promos that we've been putting together so far, is from New York. She's an astrologer and is it an astrophysicist or a physicist?
Yes, a former nuclear physicist.
Nuclear physicist. Oh my goodness. So are you still practicing nuclear physics?
Not any longer, but I do practice it at heart. I don't practice within the system, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, well, just you know, very curious about it all. What were you a physicist before you were an astrologer, or an astrologer first?
Astrologer first, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I started studying astrology in my teens, and then when I entered Moscow University and started studying physics, I was already like deep into my astrology learning.
Yep.
To my surprise, found a few friends who are also studying physics and studying astrology simultaneously, and eventually joined an astrology academy in Moscow. And our teachers and the directors of academy were also physicists. Well, that was exciting.
Wow, what a great background. So we're really looking forward to, you know, your presentation today. And again, you know, everyone out there, this is a really special treat. This type of stuff is usually sort of set aside for webinars that you pay for and that type of thing. So your time and effort today is really appreciated, Nadia. And for all of you out there that are watching, do remember to support the CIA, because the more you support us, the more we can bring you and the more we can do of gathering, you know, this information. And as astrologers, we love to share what we find, don't we? You know, we love to share what we find out about research. Now, this topic is particularly interesting, you know, the physics of astrology, because, you know, as astrologers, we just see it working, don't we? We know that it works because we see charts come alive. We see the archetypes living, you know, out in somebody. We see, you know, aspects playing out in people's lives, you know, the challenges that they've got, and, you know, and so on. And then we see transits sort of taking over people's lives in certain ways. So we see it working all the time. But then for so many on this page, and just generally like the spread of astrology at the moment in the world, you know, people are kind of, you know, I suppose looking into it, but then I know for myself, it's taken a long time in a sense to get a good grasp and understanding, and then really truly know that it's something I use, believe in, and work with, because I've seen it so much. But then for others, it might be, and again, this is very skeptical with so many people, they want to know the science behind it. Like, it can't be anything real if there's no science behind it, where in fact, you know, metaphysics and, you know, stories and myths and all that sort of stuff are alive and well, and astrology is that combination. So, so we look forward to what you present to us today. If anyone's got, let's say, questions during the session, I'll keep an eye on those. Nadia will be busy, but we'll address them towards the, you know, at the end. So over to you, Nadia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia. It is my great pleasure and honor to present it to the world. The first thing I have to say is that when I started in astrology, I noticed there were a couple of questions that are unanswered within the astrology community. And one of the biggest questions is, how does astrology work? It's a big question. Is it symbolic, the planetary rulership, or is it some kind of universal clock, or is it just a correlation, coincidence of sorts, or is there actually physical mechanism that controls the whole system? And I've been surrounded by skeptics, and they, my physicists, friends, buddies. Of course, they were asking me, Nadia, how can you be a scientist and also be into astrology at the same time? Astrology is a pseudoscience. And I knew back then that astrology works. It's such an amazing science. It works like a magic, but it does work. So for me, all I had to do is just find an explanation so I can bring it to my skeptics and be able to defend astrology. So I was on a mission to explain it. Back then, all I could say is it worked. You know, it worked. Read Linda Goodman books and you'll know it works. So as of right now, I developed a framework that explains astrology and with no ratios, so no worries. There's no formulas. I'm not gonna even give you numbers. So it's very good for both left and the right brain. And I'm literally gonna explain it with the stuff that is obvious that people just don't notice. I'm gonna start my PowerPoint. So I hit the share screen, go right to the PowerPoint. So here you go, physics of astrology. And since we are in the eclipse season, we will be zooming into nodes and eclipses, of course. So let's go to the first slide. This is the biggest question. How does astrology work? What is the actual physical mechanism by which celestial bodies influence our life? And we do have these bodies. We all see them on the chart, and we know they're there on the sky, but they're so far away. They essentially tiny. You can't even see them without a telescope. So how do they affect us? How do they actually affect us? What's the mechanism? So let's see. We work with astrology charts, we astrologers. Wait, I have to stop this. We work with astrology charts for years, and we look at these symbols, and we don't really think that these not just symbols, these are physical celestial bodies that have physical qualities to them. And the most important physical quality that these bodies have is gravity. I don't want this PowerPoint to go too fast. Maybe I will exit the full screen mode of this PowerPoint, so this way I can do the slides separately. So besides gravity, we have magnetism, and we have, temperature, density, angular momentum, orbital motion, the orbital shape, and we also have sound. We have a lot of physical qualities to the celestial bodies. And some of the celestial bodies of our solar system are absolutely enormous size. Like Jupiter, for example, is 318 times bigger than Earth. How can it not affect the Earth or everybody on Earth? This is huge celestial body. And or the moon. The moon is not a huge body comparing to Jupiter, but it's the closest to Earth. And it's smaller than Earth, but not that smaller than Earth. It's not insignificant. So it is a massive celestial body that revolves around us, and it has a gravity. The first thing I usually tell skeptics is the easiest thing to see that is very obvious in terms of how celestial bodies affect us is the gravitational tides. And everybody heard of lunar tides? I found this, we are in the Mercury retrograde a few weeks right now, so I dug out an antique video that explains lunar tides. It's very adorable. I want to show it to you. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. So what it shows is, it shows, okay, we have water and we have a celestial body, and this is gravity sort of force that pulls this water towards that celestial body. This is moon, this is earth, and this is gravitational pull towards the moon. So cute. What this shows is that the water creates a bulge on two sides because of that pull. And the moon goes around, and it always drags that bulge around. They're talking about the bulge being on the front side of the moon and on the back side. They explaining it incorrectly, but the backside bulge is due to centrifugal force as well. So it's a very interesting dynamic between sun and earth, between moon and earth, that creates this bulge that goes around, and they showing it. I don't know which year that video is, but it's very, very cute. So now they're showing the sun and the moon both, and the gravity pull. And this is where we have the sun is over here and the moon is over here. So we have mid tides, which means there's a lunar tide and a solar tide, and they're combined into a lunar and solar tidal dynamic. And this is another diagram to show you how that works. So lunar and solar tides. And by the way, we hear about lunar tides, but we don't really hear that much about solar tides. People don't really know. If you ask them, they've never heard of solar tides. And solar tides do exist. And people who study tides, they work with both solar and lunar tides. And if we have a tidal effect by these two big celestial bodies, why wouldn't we have tidal effect by other celestial bodies as well? But you never hear about it. You never hear about Jupiter tides, Mercury tides, Venus tides, Mars tides, but they do exist. The reason why we're not hearing about them, that they're not as obvious. They're subtle, but subtle things don't always have to go unnoticed. On the contrary, if subtle force is applied gently and applied consistently in a recurring way, what happens is every time it's applied, it amplifies its own effect. And what we're observing, when that happens, we're observing a resonance, a resonating amplification of the same effect. So this is very important to remember. I'm going to show you another cute video, Italian video, about tidal effect. So this is a ball of water, which is Earth. And this is a gravity force. And it shows you how Earth gets distorted because of the gravity force. It becomes, this is why actually the Earth is not a globe, but an ellipse sort of, because of that gravitational distortion, and centrifugal forces as well. So this is what happens. And pay attention here to this cross. This cross shows the center of dynamic between Earth and the moon. We all think about the moon rotating around the Earth, but in fact, both of them, the Earth and the moon, are rotating around common center, which is this point. So the Earth is not on a steady straight line of an orbit around the sun. It's not. It sort of swings around that orbit because of this dynamic dance between the moon and the Earth. But again, you don't hear about it from school. You don't learn it in school. Nobody talks about it. We have to sort of figure it out on our own. But that is important, and we're going to talk more about it going down now, down the line, down this PowerPoint. So this is what you could do if you want to feel what happens between moon and Earth. You can bring your boyfriend, girlfriend to the beach, and you could swing, hold hands and swing. And say if your boyfriend is somewhat bigger than you, if you're a girl, or if you're a man, you bring a small girl, a small girlfriend, or a child, and you swing, then that child or petite lady would be a moon, and you would be the sun. So you're gonna sort of feel that you swinging her around you, but not exactly, because she swings you also. So this is what happens between Earth and the moon. And that swinging motion, by the way, you're gonna feel those centrifugal forces that will be pulling you apart a little bit. And this is what Earth and the moon also feel. The centrifugal forces happens because of their dynamic. There's both happening, gravity, attraction, and also centrifugal forces. And this is another interesting picture that shows you, it says on the picture, I found it on the internet, it says liquid Earth. And it has a deeper meaning than you even think. We always think of Earth as the hard crust, and then we have a little bit of water in the form of the oceans. But in fact, if you think about it, the Earth is a lot more liquid than it is hard. Not only that, we have more water covering Earth, but also under the water, under our crusts, whatever we have in underneath of the crust, it's all liquid. We have lava, right? So basically, the only hard stuff on Earth that we have is those tectonic plates that's sitting on the surface. The rest of the Earth is liquid. Earth is a liquid body. It's a liquid planet, liquid inside out. This is why it's very easy to distort it in a shape, in the form of an ellipse, by centrifugal forces. It's no big deal. If it would be a hard rock, like the moon, for example, right, then would not be as easy. But even the moon is not exactly the shape of a ball. It's also distorted. And who are the human beings? Human beings are very liquid themselves. Just like Earth, human beings are extremely liquid. As you can see on this picture, on this slide, there are some numbers here, but don't be afraid. So about 78% of the average human brain is liquid, is water. Even bones contain 20% of water. So human beings are liquid. So therefore, if you think about it, if we experiencing lunar tides in the oceans and the gravity affects everything, and human beings are liquid, why wouldn't tides affect human beings? So there you go. That's your physical mechanism of celestial effect on our life. It's gravity. It's gravity, it's gravitational tides and gravity waves. Now, to put that in the actual better picture closer to us, I conducted an interesting experiment with my boyfriend, and I called it an experiment with weights, and it does have to do with the full moon and the new moon explanation. So let's watch it. So I'm going to stop it and explain. So on a full moon, what we have Earth in the middle and us in the middle, and then we have the sun on one side and a moon on the other side. And these two celestial bodies pulling us apart. So they both have sort of balanced situation with gravity, because the moon is smaller but it's closer, the sun is bigger but it's further, so they're pulling us apart. So what I asked my boyfriend to do is took weights in two hands. One would represent sun and one would represent the moon, and those weights sort of pull him in the opposite direction. And you have to remember that everything is in motion. So I asked him to swing around his axis. Notice what happens. He's swinging around its axis. And if you imagine doing that, you're gonna feel that these weights are pulling you apart and they're creating a momentum that makes it easy to swing and not that easy to stop, even if you swing really well, but it makes it easy to swing, and you could swing for a long time and you don't get tired. Now let's look at new moon. What happens on the new moon? On the new moon, we have the Earth here, we have the moon in the middle, and the sun here. And both the moon and the sun pull into the same direction. And this is the Earth, right? So see, watch what happens. I asked my boyfriend to put his weights into one hand, both weights in one hand, and then try to swing that way. Do you see him struggle? Do you see how unhappy he is with holding both weights in one hand? When you hold weights in one hand, imagine that it's gonna be very easy to stop, not easy to swing, you're off balance, and you get tired quickly, even though it's the same two weights. So this is all because of the dynamic, and this is what we feel on the full moon and then on the new moon. On the full moon, we feel we have a lot of energy. We feel like going places, doing things, trying food, buying a lot of stuff, partying hard, and being out and about. And it's very hard to go to sleep, very hard to rest because you have a lot of energy. On the new moon, you get tired quickly. If you go to a party, there's a low attendance there. If you go to a gym, there's a lot of room there, versus on the full moon, it might be full. And you feel like sleeping and you fall asleep quickly. That's a genuine experience of human beings around full moon and a new moon. Now, eclipses are actually, I call them extreme full moon and extreme new moon. So whatever is said above gets to extreme. Scientists don't really, for some reason, go there. Don't go to these areas to try and explain what's obvious. And the reason why they don't do that is because they don't get paid for it. They only do what scientists get paid for, what they get grants for. They would never get grants for something like that, for research like that. I don't believe that. I'm hoping maybe in the future, but not now. But interestingly enough, I found this article in Science Daily, and the title goes, "The moon may play a major role in maintaining Earth's magnetic field." Scientists never really talked about the moon playing any kind of role in how Earth is made up. And suddenly there's this article on April 1st, 2016 in Science Daily online. And if you look at the picture, it's kind of self-explanatory. So scientists noticed that there is a strong connection between Earth's magnetic field and the motion of the moon. And they called it a geodynamo driven by mechanical forcing, which is the moon. And if you think of it that way, if you start thinking in those in that respect, in terms of if moon is actually responsible or playing a major role in maintaining Earth's magnetic field, and then you think of Earth's magnetic field, what does it represent and what does it connect to? It connects to all human life, all nature. It connects to us humans. It's so important and so vital for our living and our life on Earth. And if the moon is responsible for driving that magnetic field, then what does it tell you? Another thing that is very obvious, but you don't find that discussion in mainstream sciences, is our sleep-wake cycle. And we know that we attribute it to, okay, the sun rises, the sun is up, there's a day, we out and about, and then we go to sleep at night. Why we sleep or why we need to sleep is one of the mysteries in sciences. Scientists cannot explain that. But if you look at what's happening when the sun is up, and what happens with the daily sun goes around, is the sun essentially is pulling us towards itself. And sun rises and the gravitational pull goes up, and then sun sets, it goes down. And then once the sun is underneath of the horizon, it pulls us down, and it goes every day, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And it creates this rhythm that we, interesting enough, grow accustomed to, right? Think about that the sun, it's not just about the light, right? The light is great, the darkness, okay, fine, but it's not about just the light itself. It also a gravity pull that get us up from the bed, and also makes us go to sleep. This picture, I just wanted to show you. I'm going to go over this picture again, but this picture shows, I found this picture on the internet. I eventually will probably draw my own picture that is going to be a better representation of what you see. But this is the sun. This is the path of the moon. And this, what they depicting is the path of Earth around the sun, which is not exactly, this is actually the path of the center of the Earth-Moon dynamic that goes around the sun. The actual Earth orbit is going to be wobbly here. It's not going to be in a straight line like that, in a straight circle line. So, but just remember this picture. We're going to talk more about it. The next slide will show you that this spiral, like you see here, occurs everywhere. The sun is not also sitting in one spot. It also goes around center of our galaxy. And this is a beautiful video that somebody created that is quoted on the internet a lot. This shows that all planets are in a spiral motion around the sun. So the next thing I wanted to talk about that's gonna explain even more how things work in astrology is the concept of the superfluid universe. And if you never heard of it, this might be your first time, congratulations. But if you have heard of it, then you're already familiar with what I'm gonna say. Superfluid universe. We always thought, or we were taught in school that once you go above the Earth and beyond the atmosphere, it's vacuum there. Vacuum meaning complete emptiness. And planets essentially suspended in an empty space. And the concept of vacuum is very strange because on one hand, vacuum, nothing can actually move through vacuum. For something to move through vacuum, you have to have waves cannot move through vacuum. You have to have some sort of a messenger that's gonna move something through vacuum. And scientists have been working around that ideal vacuum idea of ideal vacuum and trying to understand, especially with nuclear physics, trying to understand why certain things pop out of the vacuum or disappear into the vacuum. How does it work? And eventually they couldn't understand why, say, certain beams of light or radiation goes through vacuum easily. How does that work? It was uneasy to explain. So what they end up concluding is that the universe is, the vacuum is not actual vacuum. It's what they called it very smart name, Bose-Einstein condensate. It has a fluid texture. And Mr. Tesla, back in the day, he didn't like the idea of vacuum. He used to work with an idea of ether that you probably heard about, ether as a medium in which everything else is suspended. And if it's a medium and it has a liquid texture or fluid texture, then that can explain a lot. That can explain propagation of all sorts of waves through that medium, starting from gravity waves and all the way to high frequency waves like gamma rays and so forth, and visible light. Now, think that we are essentially suspended in a fluid space, and think of the liquid Earth, think of us being liquid, think of air that has the same dynamic as liquids. If you look into dynamics, air dynamics, you're going to know that it has the same vortexes as in the water. It's just less dense. So we have water, and it has certain density, and then we have air, which has that fluid dynamic, sort of like liquid fluid, but it's less dense. So why wouldn't, after that, going into space, going into thinner and thinner air, why would we then have absolute emptiness? Why wouldn't it be another fluid medium, but even less dense? For some reason, scientists didn't think of it for many, many years. Until now, they wrap their mind around it. So essentially, we live in the ocean. We have different oceans of different densities. So one ocean we already know as ocean, that is covering the Earth. And then we have the ocean of the air. Think about that. And then we have the liquid vacuum or liquid space. It is very important. This is why we have vortexes everywhere. And we have vortexes in space. When you see spiral galaxies, those are vortexes of that liquid medium. Just like we have vortexes in the water and in the air here. And the reason why I'm talking about vortexes is coming to the point when I want to mention a little bit about the nature of gravity. We knew from school that gravity is a force. Then we learned from Einstein that gravity is a curvature of space. Now, the new physics is talking about gravity being both force and a curvature, which becomes a vortex. And by the way, this is me exploring different water liquids of different densities. So this is new physics. And what I mean by new physics is some of it is stuff that within that happened within mainstream physics, but you never hear about it because it's very much within the universities and it's not in schools yet. And some of this leaks out on the internet. You probably heard of holographic universe and superfluid universe. Very rarely people hear about it, but it's already very common. Some of it comes from alternative researchers like Nassim Haramein, for example. If you Google him, you're gonna find him talking about vacuum not being empty, and he's gonna talk about gravity being a vortex. And the fact that gravity is very much misunderstood in mainstream sciences and by people. And gravity is a whole other subject and is produced by spinning objects. Now, this slide shows you what gravity is like. This is what gravity is like. And if you look at it and you picture your spiral galaxy, the center of that spiral galaxy is going to pull all the stars in. So this is how it works. Now, let's talk a little bit about gravity waves. And these are not, by the way, gravity waves that you hear from mainstream news or mainstream sciences, that we detected gravity waves. No, those are not the same gravity waves. The gravity waves that I'm talking about are the frequencies of the planets that go around the sun. Each has its own orbital frequency, and it pulls as it goes. So it creates these circular waves, gravity waves that each one has a frequency. Like, for example, Jupiter Jupiter's frequency is 1 cycle per 12 years, and that's a frequency of Jupiter's rotation around the sun. But Jupiter has another frequency also. It has a frequency of 1 cycle per day, roughly in relation to Earth. So Jupiter has a couple of those frequencies. And other planets have frequencies in respect to the sun, but they also have frequencies in respect to us for everyday motion because of the rotation of the Earth around its axis. So Earth is very much a big participant in these astrology games and, you know, gravitational games with other celestial bodies. We're working with the frequencies. These frequencies are very, very low frequencies comparing to what you think of when you hear frequency. When you hear the word frequency, you usually think of audio frequency, radio, or you think of a visible light if you're a little more advanced, but mostly you think of a radio. But radio is a very narrow spectrum of frequencies. But if you expand your mind and look at the big picture, then you imagine frequencies go all the way to the low frequencies where there is no even a definition of how low you can go with frequencies. Like frequency of Pluto is 248 years per cycle. That's a very low frequency. But then you can go up in the frequency line, and it can go very high to the very high frequencies to like beyond visible light. UV light is a higher frequency, right? And gamma rays are very high frequencies. Microwave is a very high frequency. So, and there is everything in between, the whole spectrum. And what that tells you is that's actually making gravity a part of electromagnetic spectrum, right? Scientists have been struggling for a long time to connect gravity with electromagnetism. But if you think of gravity as a very low vibration energy wave, right? Then it's going to be part of that spectrum. You just have to, we usually see a picture of the spectrum that is only very narrow. There's your visible light and there's your radio waves or something, and that's it. But they never show you what's beyond, go there or go there. So how do things actually work with the moon, the sun, and the earth? Why is gravitational pull is so important, even though calculating with the Newton's formula, it doesn't seem to be significant? Well, the most important phenomena that happens that makes things go around and makes us responsive to every motion of every planet is this thing that's called resonance. And we all hear that word, but sometimes we don't really understand, you know, what's the big deal about it? What's the big deal about resonance? We hear that, okay, we resonate with this other person, and we are on the same page or we're on the same frequency, but we don't really understand how that works. I would like to show you an example of a very subtle effect that creates a motion, right? So if you and I was trying to find a video with a parent swinging a child on a swing, and this one popped first. So you imagine a swing, right? How much force do you think this gentleman applies to the dog to make it swing back and forth, right? If it starts applying a force, the dog will eventually stop. But if it just applies very, very tiny, tiny force, the dog will be swinging forever. And such a subtle force, and the reason why, the reason why this happens is the gentleman applies that force in a sort of resonating format, in the same frequency as the motion of the dog. One of the great examples of how powerful the subtle force application that that resonates with something can be is the story of Tacoma Narrows Bridge that happened in 1940. And this is another antique video that will show you what happened.
Tacoma Bridge, Washington, opened only a few months ago, was built at a cost of over $6 million. But misfortune overtakes the great structure. These are some of the most amazing pictures ever recorded by a newsreel. The actual collapse of the world's third largest suspension bridge. Only a 35-mile-an-hour wind is blowing, but this apparently sets up a rhythmic swinging of the bridge, which increases with each swing. Finally, the swinging road and the suspension cables give way and plunge into the water below. Fortunately, the only casualties were a car stalled on the bridge and a dog.
So that was a cute video, and that shows you that a wind, essentially motion of the air, destroys a massive structure. Why? It's because of the resonance. So this is the power of resonance. So when the moon goes around and around and around in a certain pattern, and the sun goes around in a certain pattern, and that happens over and over again, it resonates with us. This gravitational pull up and down creates a resonating vibrations within us, and we're liquid. So of course we're going to be responding to that pull. So we're going to go back to lunar nodes and eclipses. And this is a picture of that shows ecliptic, the Earth, and the path of the moon. So the moon is on a tilted path, for those who don't know, but the moon, this is the plane of the lunar orbit. It's tilted slightly compared to the plane of the solar orbit, and the points, geometrical points, when those passes, when they cross paths, those points are called lunar nodes. Now, lunar nodes are the points where we have eclipses. When the sun and the moon get together on one of the nodes, that's when we have an eclipse, essentially. On August 21st, we're going to have the sun and the moon conjoining a lunar node. But every 6 months, the sun and the moon changes the node. It could be a south node or a north node. Why eclipses are so important? Why these points, lunar nodes, are so important? And they are important in an astrological chart. They're important in the natal chart. They're important by transits. They're important all around. Why are they so important and powerful when there is no celestial body and seemingly no gravity pull is there? it's a good question. So that's why I thought about it. Why are they so important? Why is it, again, is it symbolic or is it physics behind it? Now that you know that we all floating in a liquid space, and we are liquids ourselves, and then I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna skip a couple of slides. I'm gonna show you something that will explain to you what nodes are. And picture that the orbit of the moon or the orbit of the sun is actually on a plane. These are two planes crossing, not just a circle, but two planes crossing. So I found this video on the internet. And what you're gonna see is you're gonna see a pool, the surface of the pool. And the girl, she calls herself a physics girl. You can Google her, physics girl. She rubs another plane, which is a plate, against the surface of the pool. And watch what happens. What you're gonna see here is on two crossing points between the plane of the pool and a plane of that circular plate, on the crossing points, she creates two vortices. I'm gonna start over so you can see. And there's two vortices stay for a while in the pool. They actually stay for a while, and then she goes playing with these vortices, putting dyes inside of them to see what happens. These vortices go deep. They're pulling things in. And these vortices circulate in different mirror reflected directions. This is a fun moment. Imagine a planet conjunct one of the nodes. Did you see even that big round wave that suddenly like exploded? It's explosive conjunction of a planet with the node, because it almost like the node accelerates the planet in of sorts, give it like additional power. So this is why people sometimes say that the nodes are powerful, and North Node is the head of the dragon that swallows everything. It is essentially a vortex. It is a physical vortex. There is no celestial body, but it is a point of vortex in a space, in a liquid space, that pulls everything in the head of the dragon, while other node spits things out, sort of, the tail of the dragon. So those vortices go in two different directions. And it is in a way similar as Earth's magnetic field. If you're gonna look at the poles, the magnetic lines going in at the top, and these are magnetic lines going out on in the south pole. So this is similar with nodes. A north node is gonna be pulling things in, and the south node is gonna release things out, just like with Earth's magnetic field. It's a very, very interesting when you actually think of it that way. Now, why we only dealing with primarily with lunar nodes when other planetary orbits, also planetary orbits, planes tilted against ecliptic? Why are we only talking about lunar nodes Well, one of the reasons is the moon and the sun are the biggest celestial bodies on the sky for us. They're sort of the most important to consider. If we start considering nodes of other planets, it's going to be too busy in our brain. And eventually we'll get there. But so far, we just scratching the surface of astrology and what it is. There's so much out there, and we just need to learn the basics first, which is the moon and the sun and the nodes. Now, one of the things that I wanted to mention in terms of how the lunar phases work, and in terms of the full moon and the new moon, there's another phenomenon that is going on there. And I wanted to show you this picture. You see, again, new moon, full moon, Earth. And here in green, you see low potential, high potential. And what does it mean, low potential, high potential? It might be hard to picture it, but if you think of a roller coaster, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have been on a roller coaster, then you know that when you get to the top, it's your high potential moment. The cart that you're in is gonna almost stop, right? So as you're going up, you're slowing down, and then when you're at the top, you're almost stopping, but you have a lot of potential energy that then turns into kinetic energy when you're going down and you pick up the speed here, right? So, and you can go in this motion and experience the change between low potential and high potential while you're moving on a roller coaster. So what happens here is, if we sort of thinking from the sun, from the perspective of the sun, what happens to the moon, right? So the moon, when the moon gets to the point of the eclipse or a simple new moon, right? The moon is in a low potential in respect to the sun. And then it swings around the other end, it's in a high potential. And then it goes around and around, just like on this roller coaster. And again, remember that picture with the spiral? It also spirals. Does it remind you of a roller coaster a little bit? So it's a low potential, high potential. And it's pretty thrilling, just like on a roller coaster, to live with the moon. If we could only compare the life with the moon with the life without the moon. But yeah. So anyway, that's a whole other story. So one of the pictures to remember is this: what planets do when they revolve around the sun, or the moon revolves around the earth, or the earth revolves around the sun. They all create this type of patterns. They're never on the same orbit, never. The orbits create a flower. And what that reminds me of is, remember, it reminds me of spirals that you see in electronics. And it gives me an idea of how the moon actually is that dynamo that creates that Earth's magnetic field, and in turn the Earth and the moon affect solar magnetic field, and other planets affect solar magnetic field and affect Earth's magnetic field and Earth's orbit. All of the planets affect each other. They're all massive celestial bodies, and they all revolve around the sun, and they affect each other's orbits, and scientists know about it, and they actually predict certain new planets before they even discover them, just by distortion of orbits of planets. And it just looks to me that like a sophisticated, balanced design. So everything affects everything in this interesting way that gives us an existence of sorts, gives us our life. And some of the astrologers compare that spiral of planets and moving together with the sun around the center of the galaxy to the spiral of our DNA. So going back to the eclipse that's coming up, and generally to eclipses. Why eclipses are so important comparing to even a regular new moon or a full moon? And like I said, eclipses are extreme, full moon and new moon, extreme. And we do live through cycles. We have cycles of new moon, say, for example, once a month. That's a short cycle. And every time the moon becomes new, going through a low potential point, right? It sort of starts a new round to get to the high potential point. We have an ending of certain short story, beginning of a new story. It's sort of a bit of a renewal for us of our energy, of our inspiration. And it's just like on a roller coaster. If you think of a roller coaster, you're sitting on a roller coaster and you go up and down and making these swoops, then think how it makes you feel. When you're up with the high potential, you get that surge of fear, adrenaline, right? Then when you start going down, you feel a relief of sorts. And you pick up the speed, then you have a new different type of thrill that you pick up the speed, but on the other hand, you're sort of closer to Earth, so you feel relieved a little bit. But then you're going up again, and that takes your breath away. It's a new high potential. So all of our planets go through similar type of motions in respect to the sun and to Earth, where we have a low potential and a high potential for each planet. And it's very, very similar to the lunar motion and lunar phases. And this high potential and the low potential dynamic and everything in between, if we start zooming into detailing it, it will explain to us the meaning of lunar phases. It will explain to us so much that I wish we had time for that. But let's look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that besides the monthly cycles of new moons, we have our 6-month cycles of eclipses. These cycles where the moon actually aligns very precisely against the sun. And yes, it's a phenomenal phenomenon when the moon aligns with the sun, even for the partial eclipse. However unnatural that is from standpoint of conventional science, that this is very unnatural for the moon to be so precisely aligned, but you know, this is what we have, this is what we live with. But we're talking about 6-month cycle of partial eclipses, but then we have much bigger cycles of full total eclipses like we have in one now. And each of those cycles represents a bigger, longer sort of story. And when we are in a total eclipse situation, then it's the ending of a very, very long story. It's an ending it's an ending of maybe multi-year story of your life. And we all start feeling as on a roller coaster. We feel as we coming towards the lowest point. We're feeling that we get in there because we go in there with the high speed. So the same with the total eclipse. We all feel that something in our life is coming to an end and something new is gonna begin right after the eclipse or during the eclipses. And for some people, it already happened. Like I hear some people moved this summer to a whole other state or whole other country. Some people ended certain processes that have been lasting for years maybe, and so forth. On top of that, we have the Mercury retrograde, and that's very good for closing certain cycles. And this is the chart of our eclipse, and you can see that the North Node is right there with the Sun and the Moon, signifying our eclipse. And that North Node is very hungry. It's a head of the dragon. It's a vortex that has a great power to pull something in. So it's hungry to pull the energy in. So remember that. And we do have a nice support of trines from Saturn and Uranus to the Sun and the Moon, which is great. And you probably feel it. We feel it that it's not a harsh closure of things. And one of the reasons that the eclipses are so ominous and symbolize the death of a king or a war, one of the reasons why that happens is because it is a closing point to a chapter, so to speak. It's the lowest potential closing of the cycle, closing of the chapter. And whatever that's going to be, however it's going to play out, whether the king is dying and the new king is going to rule for the next chapter, it shouldn't be so ominous, because the king doesn't have to die. He can just step down or something, but it's going to be a closing of a chapter of sorts. And the wars that eclipses usually, and is from, since antiquity, kind of famous for, the wars also symbolize a change of rulership, maybe change of expansion or defeat of certain country and expansion of another country, but change of land or whatever that might be. But it is a signature of change. Change, closing one cycle, going into a new cycle and a new high potential. And that's all I have to say. And I'm welcoming all questions that might be happening now, or if later, and you guys can go to my website, physicsofastrology.com, and you can actually email me questions, and you could submit questions right on my Facebook. You can find me, Nadia Smirnova, and ask me questions. I'm always hungry for questions because they make me think and they make me come up with some explanations.
Wow, Nadia, thank you so much. That was just amazing, really. I'm sitting here learning so much. I love it. Wow, can we have a show every month with you?
Absolutely. We can talk about physics of Mercury retrograde. That's a fun stuff.
Yeah, right. Can you just stop sharing your screen for a sec? Then we'll get us back to the two of us. You know, your explanations for the vortex of eclipses, the nodes, the vortex of the nodes, that makes so much sense. You know, we hear about, you know, the power or the portals of eclipses around, you know, of course they have to be around the nodes, but that just makes so much sense in this fluid universe that we live in. And, you know, as you mentioned, you know, I mean, there's so many things, like I could have questions on every slide, or, you know, not questions, but commentary in that sense that brings up a lot more thinking, you know, for all of us, or as astrologers. So it's been really insightful, very much so. And as you mentioned, Nassim Haramein, we've talked about him before, but the word that he always says is spin. That at the core of everything is the spin, isn't it?
Exactly.
Everything's spinning. And so your explanation of the low potentials of the new moons and the high potential, I mean, perfect for further understanding what we go through on a monthly basis to start with, and then putting in the eclipse energy into that. And tying in, of course, what we've always understood about the North and South node, the North node hungry vortex. And this solar eclipse is on the North node. You know, it's a hungry, it's, you know, symbolically then we, you know, astrologers always move to the symbolism of this to find more information, don't we? And so the hungry nature of where we're heading to start things new, I think is the potential of this eclipse, you know, on a collective level. And then Mars is there as well, you know, so the activation of Mars, you know, it's just really, really good. Thank you, Nadia. I hope everyone appreciates it. I'm just looking if there's anyone got questions in the thread at the moment. Let me just... I've got to look at my screen this way for that. Everyone's just saying thank you and yes, come back. So,
yes.
So yeah, let's think of more things that we can do. You know, with your. I love the videos too that you've picked. You know, those ancient videos and that bridge. Whoa.
Oh, that's an amazing video. It's such a find on the internet.
Yeah. And then the cute little videos. I mean, videos always help explain a lot more to us, don't they? So the power of that movement and also the simplicity of that pushing the dog, and just the way you've put it together, I'm sure that's helped explain so many things to many more of us. And a really important part of understanding astrology. So thank you so much, Nadia.
That's my pleasure.
What will you be doing?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So what will you be doing on the eclipse?
I have a couple appointments with clients, and it's the thing is, eclipses have been already happening for me. And this particular eclipse is making a good, juicy trine to my Sun and Mars, which is Aries, the end of Aries, and Uranus is right there. So good changes happening to me, certain things, and I already see them happening this summer in the eclipse season. Like I see several multi-year stories that run in parallel in my life are coming to an end this summer, and then the new stories beginning.
New stories beginning, yeah.
Right. And I'm observing the same thing with other people. I'll give you an example, because the eclipse is happening in Leo Aquarius. One of the friends of a friend who came for a reading, she She's a Leo, born on a full moon, which means her moon is in Aquarius, and she's a Leo. So the eclipses kind of resonate stronger with people who are born on this line of fire, so to speak. So for her, very simple, since it has to do with her being a full moon baby, and she has lots of children. She has 3 daughters. So this summer, her last youngest daughter moves away in college, and another daughter who came back from college, she actually moves out from the house. So basically, she said it's the first time she feels that she's done with being a mother, and it's a whole new life starting where she's gonna be just with her husband doing this and not having motherly duty anymore because the kids are grown up. And it's a multi-year story because the children are in their late teens and 20s.
Is it about 18 years? 18 years cycle for or 19? So
one of the cycles is an 18-year cycle, right? And another cycle that we're closing into is a 54-year cycle. Right? There are bigger cycles.
Yeah, I'm in my 54th year, so the next eclipse is next January, February will be my prenatal eclipses. So, yeah, new beginnings and endings all at once, very much so. So it's a big
it's sort of a little bit feeling of the cleansing type thing, like with every new moon, but this eclipse feels cleansing.
Yes, that's right. Solar eclipse is much more potent for that reason. And so, you've given everyone a lot of inspiration to work with the eclipse and what they know about the eclipse in their own chart and sort of back it up
it shouldn't be
the physical.
Yes,
no,
it shouldn't be scary and nothing to be afraid of. There's a lot of hype about eclipses, what it's going to mean for Trump. What is gonna mean for America? Well, whatever is gonna transpire, and it's already transpiring right now. The changes.
Yeah, that's what I said the other week. It's already happening. We're in it already, and
there's not gonna be a drastic change afterwards. There's just gonna be a following events, just like events already happening, and. If we have Trump, who just recently stepped into the office, and you hear that eclipses, especially major eclipses like that, total eclipses, they can start a year in advance their work. The fact that we have Trump, who is very, very unusual type of president compared to what we've had before, very on many levels, right? We already have them. He symbolizes this eclipse himself. His figure symbolizes this eclipse. We might not even much happen to him beyond the fact that he exists. He symbolizes this eclipse, this change. He symbolizes that particular degree with his chart. He symbolizes that revolutionary situation where things are changing, sometimes unexpected, sometimes we can't quite grasp what's going on. We do have a threat of war from Korea, so this is all already happening with the eclipses, right? And the following events, as they're going to be unraveling, we're going to watch them. We're going to have a front seat watching what's going to be happening.
That's right. I've always said it's like, people say, so what's going to happen? I said, it's already happening. So just look around. It's already happening. It's happening. We're right in the middle of it. We're in the vortex.
Right. If you just always think of a roller coaster, right? That lowest point of the roller coaster doesn't happen unexpectedly. Right?
Yep.
It's going to be coming. You feel it physically as it's coming up. And then swoop, and then you feel how you climbing back up.
And actually, when we're going down, we always that's the anxiety part, isn't it? That's when you sort of lose your stomach and you go, oh.
You picking up the speed.
Right.
The highest point, and then you're picking up the speed going.
And when you're high, you kind of, it's like you're in suspension, isn't it? You kind of.
Exactly. Yes, and then we just had a lunar eclipse, a week and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I vividly remember my weekend, very, very Uranian type of full moon. I was in the yoga festival in Vermont, very Uranian. So, and I predicted for people on the radio that it's going to be one last splash before you going down to that lowest point, right? You make a splash and then you go down to that low potential of the roller coaster.
Right.
So when you, within that splash, you have a feeling that it's frozen. It's like you're on the top of the roller coaster.
Right.
Not going on, but you're on the top of that roller coaster. Everything is great. You eat a lot, you party a lot, things are happening. And then you're going to start slowly moving down, 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 down. And then you speed up all the way to your eclipse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, with anxiety.
With anxiety, yes. There's a lot around. Gosh, you know, after this eclipse, the next full moon is really potent. It's actually conjunct. Oh, let me just quickly have a look. I was looking at it the other day, and now because coming down from the eclipse, and then we look at what the next full moon is, which is of course in Virgo, because the sun moves in. It's the full moon's conjunct Neptune. Okay, is that right? Yeah, around the 6th of September. So that's where we're heading after that. So, you know.
I love that. That means it's going to land right on my natal moon, because my natal moon is conjunct Neptune right now.
All right. Oh, lovely. Well, we kind of better get going, but thank you so much for all your insights. And as you can see, I was already sitting in the fluid universe. With my back.
I told you I was going to do a little underwater situation.
Yeah, that's right. And I look forward to when we hear from, you know, can do some more stuff with you again. Just to let everyone else know, we've got the next Agents Live. Well, Gemini Brett, Agent 1123, he does things sporadically. So he sort of comes on when there's time, or when he's available and whatever, because he's got a lot to give and say. But for the rest of us, we're kind of more organized. But our next one will be on Monday. So the day of the eclipse, it's daytime in Australia, I'll be with Agent 27, and we'll be talking together about a few things that come up, but also Cassandra, Agent 56, and Agent 129, Christina, will be doing things on that day. One of them will be live. Cassandra will be live for the eclipse too. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but anyway, stay tuned. So that's going to be great for those of us that can't see the eclipse live. So we'll be showing you from here, so as best as we can. All right. So everyone that's enjoying what we're doing here, please, you know, donate, participate, join the membership. There's a lot more information for all of you there with these wonderful agents, of course, and a lot more you can learn with us and so on. So for now, thanks, Nadia, again for your time, and we'll see you all.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just want to mention, for those who, I don't know from which countries you guys are, but for those who listen to it or are going to be watching this video later, if you guys want more of my stuff, my interest in unusual science, physics, or astrology, I'll be presenting at the Kepler conference in January. You can go to keplerconference.com. You can find all that information. I'm also going to be presenting at United Astrology Conference. It's going to be the biggest conference, international conference of all, and it's going to be in May 2018, May 24th. It starts May 25th in Chicago. You know, join my mailing list. I'll remind you about the conferences and all.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of us going there, you know, to UAC, as it's called. So what we can do, Nadia, I'll put all the links to your YouTube channel, your website in the thread, you know, that everyone's watching. And look, for the CIA, we're planning something perhaps after UAC as an outdoor, under the stars type of thing, because a lot of us will be in the US from all over the world. So it will be, so stay tuned, we're onto it. And also the good reasons to become a member, because members, you know, are priorities. If we have smaller places, the members come first. So anyway, thanks again, Nadia, and we'll see you all later, okay? And have a great eclipse build-up. As well, as you were talking about the coming down, there's also a moon in Cancer before the Leo. So the balsamic, the darkening moon in Cancer really sort of alludes to that type of watery energy. So make the most of it, everyone. All right. I'll see you all later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.